Good morning, everyone. It is Sunday, the 11th of December, 2022. And it just so happens that within the last 48 hours, I've done a lot more research on the sun and the moon and the impact on the earth, but then also the impact on parasites and other things. But I digress. I'm just going to get into first things first with monism that I was talking about in yesterday's video, and the circle with the dot in it. That is hidden symbology in a lot of different occult groups, and this is something that was described by Ptolemy and Hypatia, who was a female astronomer, mathematician, scientist, and also someone that believed in the geocentric model, and so did Ptolemy, who was from the 2nd century CE, and up until the 15/1600s, when we had this scientific, what we're calling the revolution, but what I'm calling the de-evolution, people did believe in the geocentric model. And then there was another model that came out, and I believe what's called the Tycheia model, but that's more like the geocentric model, but with where the luminaries, what we're calling the planets and the stars, revolving around the sun and not the Earth, as Ptolemy discusses and shares with his maps and his experiments and his predictions on the constellations and the flight, or whatever you want to call it, paths of the luminaries and the sun and the moon and the eclipses and the full moons, etc., were 100% accurate. And his explanations needed work, but that wasn't his forte, right? But he did a lot for science, and then for almost 2,000 years, or more, because there's still people that still believed in the geocentric model, even through the scientific de-evolution. And we're trying to discuss this and refute these claims made by people like Nicholas Copernicus, who was a Freemason, part of these occult groups, and who, for whatever reason, came up with the heliocentric hoax, the heliocentric model, and that's been constantly debunked and disproven since. And we're still talking about gravity, even though that is something that can be repeatedly explained and debunked, and people like Isaac Newton and his theories. He's been proven time and time again that he was wrong, and I don't understand why people don't know that about big significant things, and how there was even differences in the theory of gravity and discussions of it between Isaac Newton and Einstein and beyond. Um, but yeah, so people that are believing in the pseudoscience that has been reinforced by propaganda machines all throughout the world. I keep asking about have you read your Bible for the religious people in of various different religions, but even in the original King James version. And again, there's a lot of different Bibles that have been recreated and translated throughout the years, and there's been known and proven inconsistencies, and then also chapters or books that should have been part of, or used to be part of, the set of books that make up all the Old and New Testament, where there's 66 books in total, 39 and 27, which are also significant gematria numbers. But anyway, where was I going with that? Oh yeah, and so there's been repeatedly these what we're calling these experts that have just provided theories, and that's what science is, right? It's there's theories that are put on the table that are explained, but they also have to be experimented on, or research and experimentation done, and the ability to duplicate the models, right? Because even talking about gravity, I've discussed how there's been tests done with helium balloons and putting an electric charge wiring system to it, and when there's a negative charge it lowers, and when there's a positive charge it raises. And there's just so many we don't feel like we're moving, or that we're being pulled to the earth, and then there's just a lot of things within nature that would also prove that again, we're not even spinning because of hummingbirds not being impacted, by the Coriolis effect or bees, or not factoring in like the spin when we're in air balloons. But then people are trying to say that like no, that like we're all moving simultaneously at the same time, even masses that are less dense and more dense. Anyway, there's just been just too many things that could be even explained away without doing the research and experimentation. But like that has also been repeatedly done, and so it'd be interesting if people would take more of a look into that stuff, and Hypatia as well, and just conveniently enough, like all of her work, even though she was ahead of her time, and people like Socrates and Plato, like they are people that like spoke highly of her, and she was apparently like the best like scientist slash astronomer of her time, and people came from all over the world to listen to her speak, and wanted her advice, and she was well respected, and she's single for many years, just like me, and apparently she was very good looking, and apparently and so there's just a lot of like similarities, which is very interesting, because it's not someone that I knew a lot about or anything about before I started delving into this like the pseudoscience stuff, and looking back at the more original astronomers and mathematicians and scientists, and then looking at their models and their research studies and their experiments and what they discussed, and it makes a lot more sense to me, and it's very clear, and why I think for so many thousands of years, I think that the world is older than what we're being led to believe. And I do believe that people that have survived in more austere climates or underground, like we've seen in so many different civilizations and countries like Turkey, like I shared just yesterday, where there was underground tunneling systems that were underneath certain like palace areas or cathedral areas or whatever. And like the tunneling system like looked very similar to what ants create underground when they do their when they create their civilizations or their colonies and stuff like that. I was listening to Andreas Zertis and I forget what her name is, his wife Brittany, and so many other people that were on his show, and they were discussing things about the moon, and it was very interesting to me, because I've done and I've discussed this too, where I think that the sun and the moon are within the firmament, which is talked about in multiple different scriptures, in multiple different Bibles, and there's so many different, again, occult organizations and religious groups and scientific people that do believe in the same thing. And there's been tests done as well where there's where the moon, like there used to be moon towers. I've discussed that before. John Levy, I believe, is the one that discusses the show's towers and makes the link to the moon, or maybe not. Maybe it's Bernie from the Alchemist. I'll share links to these people and their YouTube channels so that you can see that they actually do live streams, and they do live experiments, scientific and engineering experiments, and magnetic experiments, and scientific and all this stuff. And even with the moon thing, Bernie was on Andreas as well, and he showed experiments that he did, and how when it's a full moon, how it impacts the magnetic conductivity within contained environments with certain elements. Silver being the one that he's using, and how there's more connectivity, or whatever you want to call it, during full moon periods. And how there's been a lot of like people that have confirmed that, like even within like hospitals or psychiatric wards or law enforcement or whatever, that there's more activity and stuff that comes out to the surface during full moon periods, and there's a lot of like hidden symbology regarding worms in so many different what I call propaganda films and mainstream media, whatever you want to call it. But it turns out that the moon also like that parasites, and there's a lot of parasites within our bodies, obviously within our stomachs, and there's serotonin and dopamine receptors within our stomachs as well, right? So people think that serotonin and dopamine are just mutually exclusive to the brain, when that's not true. There's a significant amount as well. And if you want to take things seriously, there's a lot more parasites than there are like me as a whole. And so like parasites do profoundly impact people in a positive or negative way, depending on which parasites or microorganisms or whatever you want to call it are inside of us. And so when there's a decrease in melatonin and an increase in serotonin, parasites seem to thrive, bad parasites are ones that cause like inflammatory issues, chronic illnesses, and or IBS, or even again because there's an imbalance with the serotonin and dopamine receptors. It also, sorry, that like the increase in serotonin also like increases the activity or whatever you want to call it of parasites as well. So when there's a decrease in melatonin and an increase, specifically an increase in serotonin, like with that combination, that also again that activates these like these parasites, right? And they do tend to I don't know, like they're more active. I just keep saying the same thing over and over again during full moon periods, and so but also like the interesting thing about that as well is when we look at addiction, because I am a recovering alcoholic, whatever you want to call it, and it's only been 2 weeks that like since I relapsed, like again, where it had been like a very long time, and it is what it is. But when we chronically feed ourselves or give ourselves like different coping mechanisms or whatever you want to call it, food especially included, food, like especially with sugar, high fat, high sugar foods, like this is very addictive, but like this really increases and activates the serotonin levels. And then when you keep it at when you keep on increasing like the serotonin and you keep on giving it like your brain these like rewards, then there's like these new baselines that are developed, right? Because it's used to being like at a certain level, and so whenever it drops, even still above baseline what it should be, it's still like it gives us these our body goes in like fight or flight, and then because we like this, right, the parasites like what we're giving it, and so it wants more of it, right? So it'll do everything to make us want these things that are increasing our serotonin. So during these periods, a lot of people fast and just have healing teas and or coffees. I drink organic coffee as much as I possibly can, just to avoid like a lot of the chemicals and toxins that are in like more conventional commercial coffee brands. And anyway, it's only because I drink a lot of coffee that it matters, I guess. And there's also, so again with the pineal gland, that's also something that like where melatonin is created and DMT activated, and something that it like throughout history as well, something that like a lot of different ancient people have discussed is something that we need to keep decalcified and activated, and that also is something that apparently looking at the sun and the moon is something that also assists with that connection and accessing higher levels of consciousness and such. And so I think being more balanced with like the serotonin and dopamine within our lives would also be something that assists us again with any kind of like health issues or chronic like issues that we experience, because even pain, like when you're more stressed out, we unfortunately experience pain more, right? So like when I'm stressed out, my back flares up more. I tend to get like more joint issues. I have like clavicular osteolysis in my shoulders, because again, like 15 plus years, like I was in the infantry and then also doing like ultra marathons and obstacle courses and shooting competitions, and so this is like there was extended use with my shoulders, and then yeah. And then when hired, I like doing like shooting packages and things like that are use of force training for people as well, which involves like a fighting component to it, escort, control, and maneuver portion to it, as well as tactical de-escalation, tactical communication, which is a bigger piece of it. And then there's handcuffing and baton training and other things as well that's taught. But I went from parasites to that, which is super weird. And so yeah, there's a lot of like hidden symbology, not even hidden, but there's a lot of like hieroglyphs and pictures and drawings and stuff like that of like crescent moons, and it's like on flags, it's on logos, it's on so many different things, and it's always like with a sun disc with it, and then with like stars that are like like beyond it, showing that like where we're seeing the sun and moon, like that these are not like objects that are three-dimensional or what do you want to call it, like where there's things that could be seen beyond it or through it, right? Especially during certain periods when they're not fully lit up. And then I discussed this yesterday too, but when we look at eclipses, solar eclipses or lunar eclipses, like we never actually see the moon or the sun actually like moving toward like each other and passing over, right? And so like I even shared this like this past summer where oh yeah, and so like another conspiracy theory, but like again, it's when you see these things for yourself, it's really hard to dismiss that this could be like a possibility. And so like even this morning, like I'm up again before 5 usually every single morning, and now that we're having the like we just had a full moon on the 7th of December ish time frame, depending on where you are in the world or what you believe is the full moon period. And so we're in a waning gibbous, but it's still very bright. And so this morning, like I could see it like in the sky, plain as day. And then I see these lights flashing, and it's aircraft that looks very, very, very high up in the sky. And then there's like clouds, that are being like that are following behind it. And this seems to be a pattern that I've talked about. So don't just take my word on this stuff. Take a look at this stuff for yourself, just before, during, and after full moon periods. See like in the early mornings, see like if you notice these things, and if you see that there was like a very clear sky where you see like the luminaries, like the stars, and what we're calling the planets, but what I'm calling luminaries, and also Ptolemy as well. He predicted with accuracy. I think I said that, like even like the how Sirius is in the center. Like he didn't get that far, but and how but the planets, like he accurately was able to predict and forecast the flight path. And yeah, and then take a look at where, like, who went to the same schools, and why they teach theories that just like reinforce these like fake narratives, and then even people that are trying to refute like this like firmament dome. Every example that they've tried to give, like for examples of how this has been somehow debunked, like they talk about rockets, like and how they've gone through like the like the dome, and have you ever seen it? No, you haven't. And again, whenever I've shown the flight paths, it doesn't look like it's ever going towards the moon or any planets, like any of these spacecrafts or whatever you want to call it. And it does a curve back down to the earth, and people are not picking that up. And there's more, but I'm going on all these tangents. And I'm in my pajamas still, so it's silk pajamas. Make sure that I'm not. Anyway, silk pink pajamas. Yeah, so if the moon controls the worms, like / parasites, then this is where, like, even Tremors, like the 100 and all these other movies, there's a lot more that I'm just like failing to mention, but where they have it, where there's that, like, that worm symbology. Yeah, there's a lot of Bible verses like Matthew 4-8, Psalms 7:5-3, Psalms 93-1, Revelation 7-1, that talks about, and there's more, and I'll share this on my social media, that talks about like firmaments, domes, and four corners of the earth, and then like and certain people within certain like areas, like going towards the highest mountain or the highest tree, and seeing like like the entire world or earth plane, and a lot of people talking about like three different levels, and this might be something that also has like this hidden symbology or ties to like the Trinity as well, where you have heaven, earth, and then the under earth as well. Oh, I was going to talk about so many more things, but I still got to get into Hermetica and a lot of books to read, which I'm not going to be able to get into reading this week, but I highly recommend and really hope that people start looking at the references that I share, and looking at the impacts of electricity and magnetism, and how there's groups that are beyond Canada and the U.S. that know about stuff that we should learn more about, and it's not conspiratorial at this point. But I think on that note, I hope that people start looking into Chaldean numerology as well, in conjunction with gematria. So I've talked about gematria and the Gematrinator, and I have an account, and there's a monthly subscription, and But then it also like gives you the ability to look at Bible verses of all sorts as well if you want a good search. If you want to look at different names or words and see how many times it shows up in various different Bible verses or whatever, that is something that you can do as well. And then look at the like the numbering systems inside. And yeah, I think on that note, I'll keep it short. And I hope that everyone has a wonderful day.